So I just got this in. This is the SMSL DO200 MKII, which is the second version of the SMSL DO200. And it looks really familiar. In fact, hold on. Yeah, here it is. This is the SMSL DO200. This is the first version of this. I want to look and see, out of the two DACs, how similar they do look. Oh, goes out that way. Just kidding. All right. Yeah. Okay, so this one says MK2 on it. On the back, they're identical. I mean, this one doesn't have the antenna on. I just didn't hook it up. But these are literally identical from the outside. You can't see any physical difference. That's not until you turn it on. When you turn it on, the MK2 does have a different screen. Honestly, I like this screen a lot better than the MK1, which I guess is just the DO200, not really the MK1. I do like this screen better. But what I found really interesting is that when I went through all the specs, and I did a review on the DO200, and you can see that right up here. But when I went through all the specs, I thought maybe that there was a supply chain issue, and so they had to change out the chips on the MK2. It's not. They're exactly the same, identical on the inside as the DO200. At least it seems that way. Maybe a little bit better Bluetooth module, but that is it. And so basically what you're getting is a newer screen. Now the great thing about that is we know the sound quality. And I did test these right next to each other with a headphone amplifier and the AO200. And the 200 series in general, by the way, is a fantastic series. Whether you're looking at the amplifier or the headphone amplifier, I just love SMSL's 200 series. And they fit perfectly, stacked nice, all the same size, and they're really good quality. Like, this is very, very heavy. I love that the power supply is built in. It gets rid of all that muck that's sitting around. And I know that we're gonna have great quality sound out of that power supply. I'm not concerned with getting a cheap power supply from somewhere that is going to add or introduce noise to the system. I know that this should sound exactly like SML says it should. And that's great because this has fantastic dynamic range. It's fantastic. But the thing that I love about this the most is this. You have headphones, maybe you have a record player that you want to hook this up to or something of that nature. The one problem that you always have is that there's certain songs that just always don't sound the way you want them to. And you want to just maybe change the sound just a little bit. Or maybe sometimes when you're listening to your record player, you want it to sound more like a tube amplifier. And when you're listening to, I don't know, something else like via Bluetooth, you don't want it to. Well, this has some sound color modes in here. And in fact, it has 10 different sound color modes. Normal, of course, being just a normal traditional sound color mode. And then it has rich, and then it has my favorite, which has 3 different tube amplifier settings. Now I like tube 3. You put it on tube 3 and it really does make this unit sound like it's hooked up to a tube amplifier. So it changes the sound characteristics of the music to make your amplifier sound like it's hooked up to a tube system without having to worry about, you know, all the inefficiencies of tubes amplifiers themselves. And that's what I love about this. Now, it does it all digitally, obviously, but it really does make a huge difference. In fact, when I listen to my headphones, I always put on tube 3. Well, I can't say always, but most of the time I put it on tube 3 because it really does make a tremendous listening difference. And especially if I'm listening to oldies, fantastic. When I say oldies, by the way, I'm talking about like 60s and 70s oldies, not like what the new kids today think are oldies. I'm talking about the real oldies. I've had some experience with this. And you can hook this up numerous different ways. You can hook it up with digital coax. You can hook it up with USB, which is what I always do when I hook it up to my computer. If you're hooking up to like a television or something, you hook it up with digital fiber optic if you want to. You do have an I2S input, which can be reversed depending on what your setup's like. You do have balanced outputs for XLR, and of course you have RCA. Now, I always recommend doing your balanced outputs if you can. If you have an amplifier with balanced outputs, hook it up with the balanced outputs. You'll get actually a little bit better dynamic range. I think it's 129 on this with XLR and 125 on RCA. So you get a little bit better dynamic range, and in general, it's going to sound better. Now, you can power this on and off right from the back with the main switch. That's for your power supply to turn it on and off. And then you do have a remote control that you have with this. So some people like to put this up by their television or by their music and sit back with the remote control. Man, this thing really does have a lot more weight than you would think to it. I mean, you feel like most of the aluminum ones, and I've dealt with a lot of these, and a lot of them don't have built-in power supplies, which is one of the issues. But another issue is this is just a really nice aluminum feel to this. This, when you pick it up, has weight to it. But I picked up a lot of aluminum cases where they're just like super lightweight. You feel like you could throw it across the room. One of the things I feel like we don't talk about enough are the feet on the bottom. These actually protrude quite a bit, which is nice to keep, you know, this aluminum cool. And once you put it down, the thing's not going anywhere. And that thing is there. And I love that about this. Right? And check out the knobs. I mean, everything on here is just quality. Like the knob itself is very, very nice. It's an aluminum knob. I wouldn't say it's heavy. It's actually probably more lightweight compared to some of the other knobs that I've had on other systems, but it doesn't feel cheap in any way, shape, or form. On the back though, we have the gold-plated RCA, so everything on there is gold-plated. The only thing not gold-plated, which I do find a little bit interesting, is the antenna spot and the antenna itself. So otherwise, everything else is gold-plated. Oh, you know what? I guess the I2S port also is not. But the XLR and the RCAs are all gold-plated, which is nice. So are there any downsides to this unit? I would say yes, there's one downside to this unit, and that would be the price. It's relatively expensive compared to where DACs are nowadays. Now, having said that, this DAC offers a lot more than a lot of the other DACs do. So yeah, it's a little bit more expensive, but it also offers a lot more too. In my opinion, out of all the DACs that I've tested, the 200 series is the best of the DACs. So whether it's just a normal DO200 or the DO200 MKII. Now you can still get the DO200 a couple places. I'll make sure to link everything down below. And you can save yourself a little bit of money if that screen really isn't that important to you. But if the screen is, then you know, go ahead and go with the MKII. It'll cost you a little bit more money. It's not gonna be a tremendous amount, especially when we're talking about this price range, but you'll get the little bit nicer screen. And while you're at it, pick up something like the AO200 or the HO200 to pair up with it. I think it's a great compliment. All right, guys, this is Toy Studio Audio. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring that bell. I just want to give a special thanks to all my patrons who make this video happen. Now, if you yourself want to get in the know and become a patron and see some of the behind the scenes footage and help support the channel, make sure to visit my Patreon down below. Thanks, guys, and have a great day. I'm out.